What name could contain such a glory? For he was mighty God, as the universe gasped into being, flinging rays of light from his presence to pierce the void, to shatter the shadows to a tapestry of color. And he is mighty God, shattering our darkness, revealing our light, our truth in him. He was everlasting Father when orphaned Israel needed a father's touch. When we have lost our way to dark horizons, it is our everlasting Father who lights the way home. He is a voice for the voiceless. He is dignity for the stateless soul. It is he who raised up a lowly shepherd to become a king. This is our everlasting Father, our Prince of Peace. What name could contain Emmanuel, God with us, Yahweh, the great I am? What name could contain the Word of life, the light of the world, the King of kings, the Lord of all? We bow to the name that holds every other in its matchless worth. What name could contain such a glory?
First verse, Genesis 22, it says, "Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham." This was a test. Okay? So what was the test? Would Abraham trust the promise over the promiser? Would he be faithful to the blessing or the blesser? The person who gives the gift or the gift himself? Because in this next text you see, God tells Abraham, take your son, your only son, whom you love. Very, very specific language. Your son. Your only son, whom you love. God is not calling for a sacrifice, right? What he's calling, he's putting his finger on the deepest attachment Abraham has. Isaac is not just Abraham's boy. He is the promise. And Abraham is standing in a place where what God promised and what God's asking for seems like it's contradicting. It seems like it's clashing. And this is where I think most of us in our misunderstanding would quit. Because once obedience becomes painful and costly, many believers start assuming it can't be God. But the truth is this: sometimes the greatest test in your life, it's not even revealing God to you yet. They're revealing you to you first. And so Abraham, he's getting up early and he's saddling up. He got the donkey. It's in the morning. He has the wood. He has the fire. He has Isaac, and he starts walking. And I want you to notice that in that text, he doesn't negotiate with his feelings. He's not sitting here trying to wait for the mountain to make sense to him. He just moves. And some of us miss what God has already set up because we are waiting for explanations when God told us to move. Then they get to the mountain and Isaac asks a question that honestly, it exposes kind of the tension that's happening in that moment. In verse 7, he says, look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? That's a real question. Isaac looking around like, But the next line is powerful, because at that moment, Abraham does not see the ram. He does not see a provision, but he has enough history with God to trust what he cannot yet see. And the truth is, most people don't call him Jireh until they see the ram. But Abraham declares provision before he even sees it, and this is faith. This is true faith. And no, that wasn't Abraham dodging the question. Hebrews helps us understand Abraham's mindset. When you read Hebrews 11, it's a chapter all about faith. In verse 19, it literally says Abraham considered that God was able to raise him from the dead. So Abraham is not just blindly walking, he's walking with revelation. He understands. He's willing to sacrifice because he knows worst case scenario, God's promise never falls short. So if he has to raise him from the dead, so be it. He knows that if God made a promise through Isaac, then somehow God will remain faithful to what he said. And this is where we need to stop and start to make this a little bit more practical in our life, because many of us are trying to figure out what God is trying to do before we obey him. But it's not how it works. Sorry. God often does not give explanations first. In fact, I was talking to Nate, and we were going through different parts of the Bible, and I really realized that God doesn't give you explanations. He just gives you instructions. He just gives you instructions. In fact, when I first got saved, I did not know God. I grew up an atheist. I'm not going to go through the whole testimony, but I was an addict. I was getting high all the time. And I remember I had my encounter with God, and I'm sitting in my car, and I'm high as a kite. And I'm upset, and I'm saying, God, I don't understand you. This doesn't make sense. God, explain this to me. This doesn't make sense. And I opened the Bible they handed me, and I landed into Proverbs 3:5, and it said, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways submit to him. And I put the Bible on the dashboard. I said, I'm too high for this. I wasn't ready for that one. But it continues when you read that passage. It says, and he will make your path straight. Or it says, in all your ways, submit to him, because it will make your path straight. It just doesn't sound like an explanation to me. It sounds like instructions. So I'm not going to answer you. Stop trying to understand it. I'm going to show you. And what many people call a lack of provision is actually a lack of perception. Because the issue is not that God has not provided. The issue is that we have not yet reached a place of obedience where the provision is revealed. Listen, Abraham builds the altar. He puts the wood in there. He gets everything set. He binds up Isaac. He stretches out his hands in obedience. And right there, in his ability of doing something that most of us couldn't fathom, right at that point, an angel of the Lord calls out and stops him. Then verse 13 says, then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. Now here's the part I think we miss a lot. The ram was already there. Okay? Abraham didn't create the ram with his prayer. The ram was already there. God had already placed provision in the vicinity of the problem. Oh, y'all ain't catching it. Some of you have your provision in the vicinity of your problems, but your lack of obedience and trusting God is stripping away the name Jireh, because you are too blind to see what he has already provided. Don't make me yell at you. Listen, Abraham didn't see it until right at the right moment. That means God was already ahead of Abraham the whole time. That is Jehovah Jireh. Not just God who provides, God who already saw what was coming and made provision before the need became visible to you. This is why verse 14 says, and Abraham called the name of the place, the Lord will provide, as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. But the true Hebrew breakdown actually of Jehovah Jireh is the Lord will see to it. This should challenge your perspective of provision. The Lord will see to it. Jehovah Jireh means God's provision is rooted in his vision. Okay? He provides because he sees. He sees the mountain before you climb it. Listen, he sees the diagnosis before the doctor ever says it. Okay? So no, God is not reacting to your life. He is not a reactive God. He is a seeing God. He is a knowing God. He is already ahead of the things that you are worried about. And this is why Genesis 50, verse 20, it says, because it's powerful. Joseph says, But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. I want you to notice the language here. Worship team knows I've been pouring this into them. It does not say that the enemy meant it for evil and then God figured it out. It says that what you meant for evil, God meant it for good. The devil may have intentions, but God has a purpose. Okay? And the problem is many of us want God to show up with the provision at the bottom so we never have to climb. Maybe the reason you haven't seen the ram yet is not because God forgot you. It's because some provision is only revealed on the mountain of obedience. So now we go from Jehovah Jireh to Jehovah Rapha. And the main text in this you could find is in Exodus chapter 15. We'll stick through 22 through 26. When most people hear Jehovah Rapha, they immediately reduce it to one category: physical healing. And listen, that's part of it. Tell your neighbor, that's part of it. God absolutely heals the body. He heals the physical. There's still miracles today. But if all we mean by Rapha is just healing of the body, then again, we've taken a massive revelation and we just reduce it to this small little thing. Because Rapha is bigger than the body. Rapha carries the idea of healing, of restoring, of repairing, and of making whole. That means when God reveals himself as Rapha, he's not just saying, I can fix your symptoms. He's saying, I can restore what is broken. So yes, he heals bodies, but he also heals minds. He heals marriages and families. He heals bitterness and broken identity. He heals twisted perspectives, inner wounds, things people cannot even see. And sometimes that is the healing people avoid the most, because they want God to touch what hurts on the outside while never surrendering what is broken on the inside. Listen, Rapha doesn't deal with symptoms. He restores what's broken. And this name is revealed in a very specific moment in the Word. In Exodus 15:22, it says that Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness, and they found no water. 3 days. 3 days with no water. Y'all wouldn't last. I wouldn't. I barely make it through a sermon without drinking. And they came to Marah, and I'm probably butchering it. It's okay. And finally, there's water. And they're at this place. So imagine for 3 days, no water. And they finally reach this place of water. And when they go to drink it, guess what? It's bitter. Imagine you've been thirsty and you walk in. I need a drink just to walk to Maggie's. Okay? We in Florida. And you finally think relief has arrived, and you finally think you see what looks like the answer, and then what looked like provision turns out to be bitter. And so the people complain against Moses and say, what shall we drink? So Moses cries out to the Lord, and the Lord shows him a tree. A tree, not a branch, a tree. And Moses throws this tree into the water, and now the water is made sweet. That right there in context, God is literally speaking. And we see it in Exodus 15:26. It says, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments and keep all his statuses, I will put none of the disease on you which I have brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. That phrase, the Lord who heals you, that's Jehovah Rapha. Okay? Now this is where you need to slow down and learn, because most people read the verse and only hear the one part, I am the Lord who heals you. But the context matters, because God did not reveal himself as Rapha in a vacuum. He revealed himself as Rapha in covenant context. It's huge. It's a huge truth that we miss, because many people want healing as an event, but God's revealing healing as a covenant life. Okay? The revelation of Rapha here is bigger than one emotional experience. The deeper truth is Rapha is not just a miracle moment. Rapha is covenant restoration. God ties healing to listening to his voice, to walking in his ways, to alignments. Not because he's withholding healing like some cruel father, but because true healing is never just about symptom removal. That means healing can be instant, but healing, listen to me, church, healing can also be progressive. Because sometimes God is not only trying to heal your body, you're coming in for your body, and he wants to heal your trust. He's healing your obedience. He's healing your inner world. He's healing the places that got twisted while you're just trying to survive. And if we're not careful, we will disconnect from God before he's done with his treatment. Listen, a lot of people want healing, okay? But very few people actually want the process. We want relief. We don't want alignment. We want breakthrough, but we don't want anything to break. So we go back to the water for a moment, and because there's a lot here. And Israel comes to this bitter water. Not a poisoned water, not an absent water. A bitter water. In other words, the problem is not that something exists. The problem is that what exists is corrupted. This is how many things in our life are. See, a marriage may still exist, but bitterness got into it. And a mind may still be functioning, but bitterness got into it. A calling may be there, but bitterness got into it. A church member may still be serving, but bitterness got into it. As leaders, we may still show up, but bitterness can get into our spirit. And what happens when bitterness gets in? What should refresh now repels. Like what should nourish, it now causes damage. And what should sustain now wounds. And so God has Moses, or shows Moses this tree. And Moses throws the tree into the bitter water, and the bitter water becomes sweet. And it's a beautiful picture because God didn't remove the water. He transformed it. That is Rapha. He does not just throw away the broken, he restores it. That is Rapha. He does not always discard what is wounded. He heals it. He repairs it. He changes its condition. You want to know if you're really surrendered? Your conditions will start to change. And I'm not talking about your surroundings. I'm talking about your heart. The way you perceive things, the way you see things, the way you handle things. Rapha means he can make bitter things sweet. He can restore what life twisted. And he can repair what hell tried to poison. Listen to me. Healing flows through alignment. That is not popular because people want healing to be detached from everything else. But God connects Rapha to hearing his voice, to doing what is right, and to keeping covenant. Why? Because healing is not just about feeling better. It's about being brought back into the wholeness of God's order. Do you hear me, church? Sometimes the miracle starts in your perspective before it reaches your body. Sometimes the healing starts in your trust before it reaches the circumstances. Sometimes God heals the heart first, then the habit. Which means the greatest healing in the room may not even be the one people who can see it immediately, though those are great miracles. But it might be the person whose mind is being freed, whose bitterness is finally breaking, whose home is finally coming into order. This isn't just this nice sermon point, okay? This is not us saying God used to heal. This isn't literally something from Exodus. This is present reality. Man, there was a prayer request that was brought to me and my wife on a one night. It was, matter of fact, it was back in Thanksgiving, where we had our Friendsgiving, and we had a whole bunch of food and a potluck, and brought it up. And I ended up missing more than half of the food to go pray. By the time I came back, it was gone. That's sad for a round boy. I'm just saying, okay? But we went to pray for a gentleman named Timmy. About a month prior, he was placed on a transplant list for a liver. He was struggling, right? He had more than just health issues, though. He didn't just struggle with that. He struggled with doubt, with fear, with his relationship with God. He struggled with alcoholism. And so me and my wife came into this room, and we prayed for him. And after the prayer, we walked away. And we went and we ate and we fellowshipped. It wasn't until this week, this very week, we just got word back that he had been healed. No transplant needed. But the healing is deeper, because God was working through him in this process. He is now diligently seeking the Lord. He is now healed in his faith, and he's also healed from alcoholism. Listen to me, this is not doctrinal statements, okay? This is not just some historical theology. This is still Rapha. But we have to understand Rapha, because we want surface level healing, and God said, I'm going to make you whole. Sometimes you come asking God to fix your circumstances, and he starts with that trust. We need forgiveness. We need to move in God. You're asking him to fix your marriage, he's going to start with your pride. He ain't going to start with her or him, whoever's, I don't know, both. I'm not trying to give y'all ammo. If you're not spiritually mature, you will think God is missing your request. But he's not missing it. He's going deeper than it. Because Rapha's not interested in shallow repair. He wants wholeness. This is Jehovah Rapha. He wants us whole. He broke his body so we can become whole. Jehovah Rapha, the Lord who heals, restores, repairs, and makes whole. And once you've seen God provide, and once you've seen God begin to do the restoration to the broken, the next question is no longer what can God do? The question becomes, who am I actually standing under? Because once he starts moving in your life, now allegiance gets exposed. Which brings me to Jehovah Nissi. And we see this in Exodus 17, and the verses are 8 through 15. And so now we're in that third name, Jehovah Nissi. And most people hear Nissi, and immediately they think, God fights my battles. Again, true. But it's incomplete. Because if all you hear is that God fights for you, you will miss the deeper question the text is actually asking. The real question is not will God fight for you, but whose banner are you under? Exodus 17, it takes place after Israel has already came out of Egypt. They already seen the Red Sea split. They've already seen miracles. They've experienced provision. They've seen water come from a rock. God has already proven himself. But now something changed. In verse 8, it says, now Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. These names. And this is Israel's first battle after freedom. Because freedom always attracts a fight. Let's be real. The moment you get saved, hell's coming after you. And Moses tells Joshua, choose us some men and go out and fight with Amalek, whatever. It's like right in front of me. Anyways. So now there's two things that are happening at the same time, right? Joshua is fighting in the valley, and Moses is working his way up on the mountain to the top. And it says in verse 11, and so it was when Moses held up his hands that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hands, Amalek prevailed. This is not random, okay? This is a revelation. In scriptures, lifted hand represents surrender and dependence. So when Moses is holding his hands and lifting them up, Israel is not just winning a battle, they are operating in the dependency of God. And when his hands fall, it's not that God left, it's that dependency dropped. Victory was not determined by strength, it was determined by dependence. So better put, this wasn't Israel versus Amalek, this was dependence versus independence. After the victory, Moses builds an altar and he says, the Lord is my banner. That is Jehovah Nissi. Now understand what a banner meant in that time. A banner wasn't decoration, okay? It was identity. It told you who you belonged to and whose authority you were under. So when Moses says that the Lord is my banner, he's not just saying God helped us win. He's saying this victory belongs to him because we win when we are under him. That means Jehovah Nissi is not just about God fighting for you. It's all about allegiance. It is about who you are under, because you cannot claim God's victory while living under your own authority. It's where it gets real. A lot of believers want God to fight their battles, but they're still waving their own flag. But you don't get the benefits of his banner and refuse his authority. And this is why Joshua 24:15 hits so hard. It says, as for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. That is a banner statement. That ain't decoration, that's a decision. And I can say that personally because my 10-year-old daughter right now is literally on that camera, literally in production, in a place of lack, and I never asked her to serve. I never asked her to do anything. In her heart, God, asking God and asking her parents and asking Nate and everyone, can I do this? Can you train me? Not because I forced her, but because in our house, we already decided who we serve. So what's your excuse? My 10-year-old's doing it. My 5-year-old's next. We'll give him a little time. And me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. I only have 2 kids. I ain't having no more, okay? So we need to step up and choose. Who are we under? Who are we serving? Listen, my family may be far from perfect, but you could bet your bottom dollar we know which banner we stand under. So hear me, church. Your life is already under a banner. The question is which one? Okay? Is it your feelings, your fear, your past, your pride, your control, or is it him? And here's where again, we miss. The banner was lifted before victory was visible. Okay? Which means you declare who you belong to before you know the battle ends. That is faith. That is surrender. That is real allegiance. So stop asking God to fight for you while you're still living for yourself. Yeah, I know that ain't popular. It's okay. And once you trust that he sees ahead, and once you trust that you can begin to walk in his restoration, and once you finally decide where you belong to, something happens inside of you, something different, something we beg for, but we won't experience unless we get ourselves to that place. You begin to experience peace. Not because everything is fixed, but because everything is finally in the right place. And that brings us to Jehovah Shalom. Judges 6:22-24. Once you realize God is ahead, man, everything changes. Some things that doesn't match with your surroundings and what you're walking through. But you experience what Jehovah Shalom really means. When most people hear peace, they think calm. They think that means that the storm stopped. But that's not what the Bible shows us. The first time God is revealed as Shalom, it's not looking so Shalomish, okay? It's in a moment of fear. Judges 6, Gideon is hiding. He's afraid. He's trying to survive. And God calls him a mighty man of valor. I'd have been like, who? It doesn't match his situation. Gideon starts questioning everything, okay? Where is God? If God is real, why is this happening? And God doesn't just give him an answer. In fact, he gives him a calling. He gives him instructions. And Gideon is still afraid, but the Lord says, peace be with you, do not fear. And Gideon builds an altar. See the pattern here. He builds an altar and he calls it Jehovah Shalom. Now check it out. Nothing changed around him. Okay? The Midianites, they were still there. The pressure was still real. The battle hadn't even started yet. But peace showed up anyways. Which means peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of God in the middle of them. Listen, if you could take anything from this, understand this. God's peace doesn't just calm you. God's peace commissions you. That's what shalom is. Not a feeling, a wholeness. And this is where it gets real for me. Because I'm not talking about something I read. I'm not talking about something that spoke to me. I'm talking about something that hit my house. Most people have no clue what the past several weeks look like for my family. I ain't putting it on you. I went to my pastors. Most people have no clue how the last couple months have felt like everything came against us. I'm talking about trials and tribulations on another level. I'm talking about in the midst of a season of opposition, something that most people will never experience, smacked us right in the face. And in the midst of this season, I'm talking about we're working with people whose marriages are falling apart. We're dealing with our own family turning their back on us. And even people who I swore would be running this race with me completely breaking my heart. And I've sat with people who slander me to my face and people who just did it behind my back. And on top of that, I've been dealing with someone, with my sister that was in the hospital because her right lung was collapsing. And all this other stuff at the same time. And nobody knows why. Because we know our assignments. We know what God is doing. But it gets real. It wasn't just coming for the church. It wasn't just coming for our house. It came for our heart. I'm going to share a testimony with you that, again, most people will probably never have to battle. But I remember being at church a few weeks ago. It was a couple months now, right? It was about 2 months. And I get a phone call from my wife. And instantly I could tell something is wrong. And in a matter of a moment, everything shifted. In a matter of a moment, our whole life stops, and it just seems like everything goes into slow motion. And for anyone who doesn't know my wife, she's a nurse. And she's working, and in this position she's at now, she's actually going to people's homes, and she's that are still admitted, but they're in a certain program, and she's taking care of them, and she's administrating medication. And here comes a moment. We're in the process of her administrating this medication. She accidentally sticks herself with the needle. And not just any stick. The patient she was caring for was HIV positive. Everything changes. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with my kids. I'm sitting here in church and I'm trying to get somebody to grab them, and I'm rushing over to the emergency room. And we're sitting in a place and we don't know what's next. They start putting her on medication, and she has to take this medication daily, and it gets her sick. And we're living in a reality for the next 6 weeks that we never expected. A reality we never planned for. One that could literally change everything. We're talking about a life-altering disease. And I'm telling you this, that's a different kind of pressure. We didn't just need one thing from God. We didn't just need healing. We didn't just need provision. We didn't just need strength. We needed him in every way. There were moments where we needed Jireh because we couldn't see how this was going to work. We had to trust that God already saw ahead. Even when we didn't. There was moments we needed Rapha because we needed restoration, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We needed God to hold us together from the inside. There was moments where we needed Nisi, where we had to decide, are we going to stand under God, or are we going to fall to fear? Because fear was real. The pressure was real. The thoughts were real. And I wish I could tell you that everything just changed overnight. I wish I could tell you that we had this instant answer, but we didn't. We were still in it, still walking through it, still facing it. There were nights it was heavy. There were moments where literally my wife is crying and she's vomiting because of the medication. And she's struggling, and I watch her wipe her tears, get in her car, and go minister to somebody, and go counsel. Why? She wasn't going to sit there for a pity party. She was walking in her purpose. Not because it was easy, but because she already decided who she was under. And in the middle of all that, we had something. It didn't make sense because we didn't have clarity, but we had peace. We didn't have the outcome yet. We didn't have the answers we wanted, but we had peace. We weren't out of it, but we had peace. We had some of literally the greatest pastors on this God's green earth be able to help us and minister us. And Linda will tell you, there was this just unspoken, like it didn't make sense, but this peace that just rested within the presence. That's when it hit me. Again, we didn't need one part of him, we needed all of him. Because Shalom is not separated from Jireh, Rapha, and Nisi. When you trust that God is already ahead, when you trust that he can restore the broken, when you choose to stand under him, all at the same time, God didn't just bring us out. He held us together while we were in it. We always want to pray for the storm to be removed, and he's saying, I'm going to take you through it. I'm going to be guided with you through this. I am going to stretch you like you've never been stretched before, because what I have for you is nothing you've never seen. And that's Shalom. Not everything fixed, but everything held. What's crazy is I knew then and there, my wife, that we were destined to do this. In a position that most people would cave. And I'm not boasting. This isn't pride. Okay, this is revelation. But most people would allow their situation to dictate their actions. My wife showed me she is a woman after God's own heart. Listen, y'all didn't see what I see. She would read more. She would pray more. She'd minister and counsel in the midst where she should be counseled. She woke up early, went to bed late, and all on the assignments that God has given us. She reminded me that our position is not subjected to our condition. In fact, it is what allows us to let God, again, stretch us. Boy, were we stretched. 6 weeks, heavy medication, but on a heavier assignment. Almost 2 months of Adriana throwing up every single day, but showing up every single day. 2 months of chaos, yet 2 months of peace. And when the results came back, she was healed. Hear me clearly. Some of you in this room, you don't need an answer. You need peace. Not peace after it's over, peace in the middle of it. Because peace is not the reward after the battle. Peace is what happens when your life is aligned with God, who's already ahead of it, who's already restoring it. And the same God who met us in that moment is in this room today. So I tell you this, peace is a result of an alignment. Worship team, you can make your way up. We're going to get ready to pray. We're going to do something. But first, I need to speak to you guys. You don't chase peace. You come under God, and peace becomes the results. That's why we could walk through something like that and not fall apart. Not because everything was fixed, but because we were under Him. So I tell you this, if you don't have peace, you may not have alignment, and that starts with giving your life to Christ. If you don't have peace, something in your life is out of alignment. And alignment starts with surrender. I'd like you guys to bow your heads and close your eyes.